Welcome to another episode of Exit Philosophy. He's Mal, I'm Griff, and we're going to be talking a lot about the division series that just ended with the Blue Jays over the Yankees. But before we get there, I just want to ask subscribers on YouTube and those who enjoy the podcast, wherever you get them, don't forget to like, share with your friends, and leave a review. We'd appreciate it. Well, Mal, I don't know if you were surprised by the result of the division series with the Jays over the Yankees in 4 games, but I think a lot of New York fans were. What's your initial impression as we're less than 24 hours away from that Game 4 victory with a bullpen game?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are surprised, Griff. I think it's the season of surprises, right? If you go back to the start of the year, I think the Jays were like supposed to win 78 ball games, so not even 500. So the surprises keep coming, and I think that's part of the joy for the fan base is just to see that little bit of that underdog mentality keep punching up, and it's the ultimate punch up when you knock off the Yankees, isn't it? So you go into Yankee Stadium and win a ball game like that. That gets a lot of people on board. So it's fun for a lot of people to see this. It's high drama. Even right to the end, although they had a relatively safe lead, the Yankees kept pushing, had the tying run on base. So a lot of fun for the fans.
Yeah, I think given the 162 game evidence of the respective defenses, that you expected that the Yankees at some point were going to be betrayed by the defense, and that was the double play ball that Jazz Chisholm wasn't able to handle, turned a 2-1 lead into a 4-1 lead, and all of a sudden you're not as nervous with Jeff Hoffman coming in. You knew he was coming in the ninth. So you're not as nervous with that. But that was a huge moment in the game. It's sort of similar to the only game the Yankees won, the Game 3 contest where Addison Barger dropped the pop-up. The wind seemed to gust and take it into foul, or take it close to foul territory, and he had to accelerate. It went off his glove. And then there was, of course, that first inning error by Isaiah Kiner-Falefa that sort of set the tone for that game and gave you an uh-oh moment going into what could have been a clinching game. But the Yankees defense was going to come through in that regard and let them down. You'd seen it all year, especially in the games between these two teams, and it did not fail to happen. And it was Jazz Chisholm. It was the Blue Jays bullpen doing the job. What do you think of the decision? And it was a gutsy decision to have Louis Varland go back out after he had given up the 2 home runs in the loss to the Yankees, to go out and be the opener in a bullpen game. What do you think of that decision?
I think John Schneider's looking pretty sharp today. I hated the idea of a bullpen day. I still hate it. I think they put themselves in an unnecessary spot. But I thought Schneider managed a tremendous ball game. I obviously they didn't want Lauer starting the game facing that top of the order, and Varland's kind of got the stuff. And I thought it was a really gutsy move, considering he'd just given up 2 home runs the night before, to try to get through that top of the order. It's showing. It's not about showing faith, but I think you're going to need Varland to get to where you want to get to. He's a key member of that bullpen, and considering you didn't have a starter, I thought it was a pretty smart move. And I thought the way Schneider managed the bullpen was surprising to me. I didn't think it was going to go like that, but you can't argue with any of the guys he rolled out there in the spots they were in. So. I even thought it was kind of, like you mentioned, it was kind of funny seeing Gausman and Yusevich stroll down there as well, which I thought was a bit of a mind game too, which is all part of the process. But you have to tip your hat for Schneider, and I think he's come a long way.
Yeah, I thought that I mean, because there are ways to get down to the bullpen without strolling across the field in front of the other team's dugout. And when Trey Savage went down, and then an inning later, Gosman went down. And when they showed TV shots of the bullpen, everybody was smiling out there as if they knew it was some sort of mind game. And to me, the only way that either one of those guys would have entered the game, because we saw in the ninth inning, no matter what was going on, there was nobody up in the Jays bullpen. So, even with the tying run on deck, it was a Jeff Hoffman game. So there was no chance that they were using Yesavich or using Gosman unless the game went extra innings. And of course, in postseason extra innings, it's back to the standard play till you score, no ghost runner on second or anything like that. So, but mind games, and I think that they must have asked Louis Varland, Pete Walker, and John Schneider must have gone right up to him after the game and said, our plan was to use you for the opener. What do you think? And you can tell, you've been around athletes, you can tell when somebody's lying to you or not. You can tell body language. You can tell whether he's sincere, whether he wants the ball in that situation. And I'm sure Louis Varland passed that eye test for the pitching coach and the manager. So, tremendous performance, a bounce back by him. He only had Aaron Judge hit a ball on a line 110 miles an hour instead of a bomb out of the ballpark off the foul pole.
That's right.
But that's progress.
Worked out great.
Worked out great. And the window that he brought Eric Lauer in was perfect. Lauer handled that with aplomb. We'll get into that discussion later of a role for next year and how this affects the Blue Jays pitching staff moving forward. But I want to ask you about your view of the post game. I thought it was great. I thought that the speech where they made fun of the Yankees start spreading the news bitches was perfect for John Schneider to begin the champagne celebration. And then, of course, the Vlad video. Did you see that one on MLB?
Yes.
Or no, on Fox with David Ortiz and A-Rod and Derek Jeter? I thought that was priceless. I think you're going to have a lot of people putting on their answering machine, if there's such a thing still exists. The Yankees lose with Vlad's voice. And then they say, we're not home. We're not available right now. But that was so priceless, so classic of Vlad and Ortiz howling with the Yankees lose. It was great to see the reaction of Jeter and A-Rod.
I think there's a lot of T-shirts being made with Schneider's comments on them, and I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was just, he struck the right tone at the right, it's you've earned it. You've earned it. You're allowed to do that kind of stuff, and I thought the Schneider one was pretty sharp actually. So good for him, and it's your turn, it's your time. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with it. It's like I said, it hit the right tone. And everybody just jumped all over it. They loved it, of course. So.
I think that this celebration and this this Blue Jays win over the Yankees in a division series has gained the franchise, the Blue Jays, fans all over North America, because you either love or hate the Yankees. And for those who hate the Yankees, they're going to be Blue Jay fans for the rest of this postseason, unless they're with one of the competing cities. But what in the long term? What in the long term do you think?
And it's. Go ahead.
Go ahead. In the long term,
even though he got all the money, Vladdy. Yeah. Even though he got all the money, this is a bit of a coming out for Vladdy too. It's. You still need, regardless, you need those postseason moments. You always have and you always will in baseball, right? So, and he delivered when he needed to. He's got a little air of confidence now. He's elevated himself. I mean, he's got the money, but he's kind of elevated himself into that next level of clutch player that everybody associates, with a star player, and he's kind of done it now. So I like that.
Well, that plays into my question that I was going to ask is, I mean, we've seen Jose Bautista's bat flip game, which that bat flip's tame compared to what we see in this new day and age of athletes and celebrations. But that Bautista home run is the one moment that casual fans remember about the career of Jose Bautista in Toronto. Edwin Encarnacion's wild card playoff game home run, same thing. I mean, Edwin had a great career, not so much at third base, but at first base and DH with the Jays. But people remember that home run. And for Vlad, all the naysayers about his career and his lack of clutch and why is he making that much money. And, you could explain all you want, as we've tried through the year, this year, is that once he signed his contract, his $500 million extension, once he signed that contract, the baseball world became aware that the Blue Jays meant to compete and to compete for a very long time. And that oozed into the clubhouse, and that permeated the playing roster, and anybody who wanted or was thinking of coming to Toronto. You don't need to convince them. They can see it with the signing of Vlad. Now, Vlad has taken it by the horns, and he has established himself as a clutch playoff performer. Nobody's going to ever talk about him being picked off second base in Minnesota or his batting average in that series, because they're going to remember this series. They're going to remember beating the Yankees in 4 games. They're going to remember the Yankees lose. And just in your opinion, Mal, where does this rank in terms of this generation? And we've talked about it, this generation of Blue Jays fans, and what even just winning this series, say they go on and lose a 6-game series to the Mariners, or lose in 7 to the Tigers, Tarek Skubal pitching, and they play well. What does this one series win mean to the franchise and the fan base moving forward? Does this give them a hall pass for the next decade?
No, I don't believe so. I think it's a great moment, and I think the story is there to be written. I think more has to be done. I don't think it does. If they can continue on this path of building on this and becoming contenders every year like they're supposed to be, then yes, I think this is just the impetus. It hasn't been a good run for the first 10 years for this management team, and they have an opportunity to change all that. But I don't think this one win will do it. I think it's certainly a great start. But I think if they went back to being a non-contender, I think, then it looks like a blip on the radar and in one of those years. But now I think they have to leverage that and keep this thing going. And hey, it all changes if you win a World Series, which is extremely possible right now. I mean, they have such a great opportunity. They might get a Tigers team that is very much less than, in front of them. So the opportunity's there, but I hear what you're saying, but I think more has to happen. I think more. It's really fresh right now, and it is awesome. But I think more has to happen. That's just my opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, they could fall into the trap, and I'll point to the most recent example, fall into the trap of thinking they're all that after this year, and then take a step backwards, and nobody expects it. You look at the Baltimore Orioles, 100 and some wins, and then all of a sudden they think that all these young guys are going to take the next step, and the pitching just needs to be good enough because they're going to score so many runs, and Adley Rutschman's going to be the next Johnny Bench, and they think all that stuff. And that's what the Jays have to avoid doing, is looking at Trey Yesavich, looking at guys down on the farm and the records that they had, and looking at the performances that they got, which are special performances from guys like Ernie Clement and Nathan Lucas, and thinking, oh yeah, we'll just fiddle with that, fiddle with the 26-man roster for opening day next year, and we'll be there again. That's a pitfall that a lot of teams fall into. And that's what you're pointing out as something you really have to avoid and be careful of. But
and you can see where the roster needs improvement. It's a lot to expect every year that you just get the same thing from the same guys every year. And you just, we'll add to it. I mean, maybe this is not the time for that, but there's a lot of work to be done with the rotation. There's a lot of work to be done with the offense as far as maybe adding some key players and what you're going to lose. But I mean, they're in a great spot, and it's time to enjoy it, I guess, at this point in time.
Yeah, we got plenty of time to talk about what they're going to do in the offseason, what they have done, what mistakes they make, and how they have not. I mean, this winning thing can overcome, because we've seen them fail to land some big names like Shohei Ohtani, like Corbin Burns, like Soto, Juan Soto. They failed to land those because the personality of the front office is not as crackerjack salesman, but this sells a product to potential players for your franchise. And I think that this does more for the Blue Jays on the marketplace than any visit by a GM and a president and video that shows how great Toronto is. I think this is the moment. Well, yeah.
Agreed. This is what you need to leverage, right? Players don't care about all that other stuff to a point. They want to come to a spot where they think they've got a great chance to win, and of course, great your success to actually go get the big name, go get the big games. So let's see if that happens in the offseason. But they've set themselves up to do just that. So they've done that part.
The reason I'm pointing out to the pitfall of thinking that you're all that and moving forward with the impression that all you have to do is fiddle with the roster is the fact of what they did, what the Jays did in selecting a division series roster and leaving 102 regular season starts on the sideline. They only had 60 regular season starts on their playoff roster. And to me, that's assuming that Justin Bruihl is more important than Max Scherzer, than Chris Bassett, than Jose Barrios. And that's can lead, and if it works, it can lead you to a bad place moving forward to next year. What do you think? I mean, we've talked about it before, but what do you think of the way that they handled Scherzer and Bassett and Barrios in particular?
Yeah, I think, I don't understand the bullpen day. I think I understand leaving one of them off. If you're going to bring a guy like Bruihl in and Nance, those guys are your games out of hand. I need innings. I don't want to burn anybody valuable type guys on the roster. And I'm not sure you want Scherzer in that role per se. Because if Scherzer's on your roster, you're probably expecting him to get a start somewhere. So in a short series, okay, I still thought they should have rolled out a starter last night, even if Bassett was capable of giving you a few innings. I thought that might have been a wise thing to do. But I think the question going forward is how they're going to handle now that they're in a 4 out of 7. You're going to need 4 starters. How are they going to operate? I think it would be a mistake to try and play this bullpen game. It can expose you and put guys in bad spots and leave you without enough innings in the pen as the series goes on. So I would think you've got to see Bassett or Scherzer on the roster ready to make a start, but I could be wrong. It certainly worked out in the shorter series.
Yeah, they were.
Thoughts are, but
they figured it out.
I'd like to see one of those guys get a start.
Yeah, they figured it out when to use the bullpen game because there's 2 games, then an off day, 2 games, then an off day, and then they would have had Gosman and Yasavich available for a game 5, so they wouldn't really need the bullpen. So the fact of taking Shane Bieber out early and then needing the bullpen for that many innings, none of those guys in game 3, none of those relievers threw more than 20 pitches. So you know how much I hate days of not being relievers not being able to pitch consecutive days. So they were all 20 pitches or less, and therefore all hands on deck for game 4 because of the off day following and who they had for a potential game 5. So, I mean, they did that well if they were going to do a bullpen game, but I'm with you. I mean, like, if you have Justin Brule on your roster, you're expecting to be behind, you're expecting to be that one game you're going to be pummeled, and you bring that guy in. I don't think that you needed him. I don't think that he'll be on the next round roster, because they are going to need a 4th starter no matter what they say. You can't, with 3 games, with 2-3-2 in terms of games surrounding off days, you can't have that situation where you're counting on your bullpen so much in one of the middle 3 games, because then, you know, there's no off day right after it. So I would say that they'll probably go with Bassett. We don't know. That we're recording Thursday morning, and they don't have to make a decision till early on Sunday morning. So, but I would say, agree with you and say that they're going to have to go with one starter. Scherzer, free agent. Bassett, free agent. Doesn't matter which one they go with, but I think Bassett is the call at this time if his wonky lower back is okay. Question: why is this team so likable?
Agreed. I think he's the guy. Yep.
Why is the team so likable to fans? You know,
well,
yeah. Why?
It's because it's the underdog mentality, because you've got they weren't expected to be here, Griff. It's the Clements, like you say, it's you know, the Heinemans, the Schneiders, the Lucases. Those are the reason this team is in the position they're in, and they're not supposed to be in the you know, American League Championship Series. They're supposed to be AAA or bench type players. So it's the real David and Goliath type story. And I think everybody always attracts themselves to an underdog. And you know, they're not the Yankees. They weren't the preseason favorite. So you've got this team mentality, that good guys in the clubhouse, the chemistry that we're building, and that's what fans really attach themselves to.
I think I agree with all that. And in terms of likability factor, you got guys like Ernie Clement. You got Nathan Lucas, who generates more confidence when he's in the batter's box with runners in scoring position than does Varsho or Barger. I mean, this guy gives good at bats and makes solid contact when there are runners on base. And more often than not in this 4-game series, he came through. He's definitely just against right-handed starters. But he has such a good role, and all these guys, like you said, are playing the underdog role very well. Alejandro Kirk, even, like, he's an everyman behind the plate, but he's got real skills that put him in the top 2 or 3 of major league catchers. And that's one of your star players who still fills the role of a lovable underdog.
Yeah, it's not a team full of superstars, right? And then, of course, you lose one of your 2 superstars, which even rallies Richette, and you still manage to succeed. So that even endears yourself more to the fan base, as it should, so to speak, a bullpen day where it's not Max Scherzer, it's Mason Fluharty and Brendan Little coming in and actually throwing strikes.
Right.
That's,
Yeah, that was
embarrassing
key.
stuff. Yeah.
I got a question about, and we've discussed this too, is a change in postseason baseball. And I challenge 10 out of 100 fans to name more than one or two starting pitcher matchups that they've enjoyed this postseason. I mean, when Tarek Skubal is pitching, but you never know who he's facing. You know when Garrett Crochet was pitching, but you don't really remember who he was facing. It used to be that pitching matchups ruled the day in the postseason, especially in the World Series. Do you think this hurts the game?
Yeah, I do. In the long run, yes. I don't think anybody wants to see what the Jays did, as a strategy. I think, like any sport, you need to tie yourself to star players, star moments. What Aaron Judge did, what Vladdy did. That's what sells the sport. I think the other parts of the game is just it works. I understand the efficiency, but for selling and marketing the game, I think Clayton Kershaw get the ball, in big moments historically, or I want Game 7 to be, Tarek Skubal versus whoever the other guy is, and he's gonna try and outduel him. But that's not where baseball's going. So I mean, we can all wish for the old days, but it's not where it's going. But I think it does hurt the sport as far as selling it. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think you probably agree with me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I grew up when there was only a World Series, like National League winner against the American League winner, and you always looked at where the 3 or 4 matchups going to be off the top of the World Series, and it made it special. And there were can't miss games because of who was pitching. And right now, it's can't miss games because you're a hardcore fan of a certain team. And maybe you want to see the one guy, you want to see Tarek Skubal. But I just think that the game is diminished by taking away that matchup. And which brings me to Shane Bieber, former Cy Young winner 2020, young guy still, so he's going to still have moments. But to me, the best hitting team in the American League, roughing up Shane Bieber through 54 pitches in Game 3, was not enough in my mind to take him out of the game. There were balls in the strike zone, pitches in the strike zone that were called balls that were strikes. There was the first inning where he would have been out of the inning in 7 pitches. But IKF couldn't make the play, and then it went on. They scored a run. I just don't think that you needed to take, especially with a bullpen game looming, and they got away with it. But a bullpen game looming, they still lost Game 3. I think Shane Bieber deserved a longer leash in that game than 54 pitches. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I thought it was an actual error on their part. I thought John was managing like it was Game 5 in Game 3. I'm not sure and at the time, I thought that was a mistake. I think you had to push Bieber. He's earned it. He's a Cy Young guy. He's not Eric Lauer out there. You needed to push him a little longer to manage the whole series rather than try to win Game 3 like you had to win Game 3. But it worked out. I mean, the problem is if the bullpen would have blew up yesterday, you would have been in a real pickle. The way you managed Game 3 and the way you set up the entire series without that starter there ready for Game 4. It worked out, so nobody cares anymore. But I did think that was a mistake. Shane Bieber, you got him for that moment, and you needed to ride his rear end for at least 80 pitches and see where things stood, and then deal with the bullpen issue. But everything worked out, and nobody's going to remember it now. So that's fortunate. Everything worked out yesterday.
Yeah, you get a chance every series to redo your roster. So The issues that we have are with the roster of the 13 pitchers. And I don't believe that you need Justin Brule. I don't believe you need Tommy Nance. I think that the way that the ALDS played out shows that these guys are irrelevant when it comes to building a roster. And so one of the starters is going to be added to the roster, probably taking the place of Justin Brule, because the two teams on the horizon don't have that level of left-handed hitters that they're going to need 4 lefties in the bullpen. Do you think Tommy Nance has a spot on this roster? Do you think he could be replaced, or, it's just Brule?
No, I think you need one guy. I think you need one guy in case of emergency. You don't want to make a mockery of the playoffs by rolling out Tyler Heineman to throw knuckleballs. Well, it's enough. But you need that one guy to eat those innings when disaster strikes, or even, like I said, up 10 even. So I think Nance has that role, and Brule comes out and Bassett comes in, and then I think you're set up pretty good for the next round. That's the way I see it. But who knows? They may try to outsmart themselves here. We'll see.
So I think that we both agree that the Division Series MVP was Vlad. But who would be your top 3?
Yeah.
Vlad, and then who? 2 more.
Well, I wanted to throw Aaron Judge in there because I think he was important and he did perform. But hey, they lost 3-1. So, I mean, come on. You know what I mean? So I think you go Vlad, and then I think the next guy is Ernie Clements. I mean, can he get any more hits, for crying out loud? It's unbelievable what Ernie has been doing in this series. Just they haven't been able to get him out, and he's playing his ass off. He's playing hard. And then we've mentioned him already, but Nathan Lucas just continues to have huge at bats. He's hitting this 2-hole, for crying out loud. I mean, another couple big hits last night. He's just turned in valuable commodity for that offense. They're not trying to hide him. He's getting big at bats and big moments, and it seems like you expect him to get a hit. So those would be my top 3. I don't know what yours are. What do you got?
Yeah, no. Second, I'd go with Clement. I mean, this guy starts at third and moves to second, or starts at second and moves to third, and plays them both with equal defensive efficiency. So, and 9 for 14 in the series, that's an unbelievable for a scrub, a guy that was sort of an afterthought, even making the roster last year when he did. So he'd be number 2. But my third has got to be Alejandro Kirk, for the way that he had to handle a pitching staff that was always changing, that was always, I mean, there was new guys coming in, and it was the Yankees, God damn it. This is the Yankees, and they're playing 4 games, and the guy behind the plate didn't seem to be stealing as many strikes at the bottom of the zone. But it was, even his bat was better than it had been. Not the final week, because he seemed to be adrenalized at that point. But it carried through the first series, so he'd be my bronze medalist in ALDS MVP. And I agree. I mean, in terms of the 2 best players, it would be Vladdy and Judge. But in terms of MVP, you got to go with 3 Jays in this. It's not the best player; it's the most valuable player. So we'll go with that. And that's
it says something. It says something when you can reduce Aaron Judge to an honorable mention. That's just right. What you want.
Something went well for your team if he's honorable mention.
Yeah.
Which brings me to, we talked about Ernie Clement and his versatility. We also knew that Andres Jimenez was on the horizon and looming as a potential shortstop. Now we've got Bo, who's not going to be back for the championship series. And he may be back, and I'm not sure how effective it would be to bring him back for the World Series. But Jimenez is giving you pause as to whether you want to spend that sort of money to re-sign Bo moving forward, or if you sign Bo and then Jimenez has to move back to second base because he's signed for big bucks through 28, I think, through 2028. Where does that leave Ernie Clement? I mean, I think that they would give serious thought to negotiating with Bo, having a certain price that they don't want to go over, not being forced to the wall by his demands, and wishing him well if he gets the money that he's looking for somewhere else. And then have Jimenez, who's a wonderful defender at short or second, and then that gives you room to play Ernie Clement, and Addison Barger then has a significant role. What do you think this did to the thoughts of Bo moving forward?
I think that's probably 100% the plan. I mean, Jimenez is an elite defender, and I think you just live with the bat. I thought maybe Bo might have been looking for places to live in New York while he was there, because that seems like a beautiful landing spot, doesn't it? So yeah, that may already be happening, but I think you're right. I think. Go ahead.
No, I was listening to you. I didn't. Go ahead.
Okay, I think it makes a lot of sense to take the dollars at this point. I don't think Bo's signing anyways, but I think it makes a lot of sense to use those funds elsewhere, rotation, another bat somewhere else. You have a solution at shortstop for the near future, and it does fit with your other two guys like Barger and Clement getting enough at bats. So I think that's probably the wise choice at this point. With Bo coming back, I just don't think at this point that's even on the table. But I think the Jimenez thing is part of why they got him in the first place, and he's a pleasure to watch defensively. Just a pleasure. I love watching him. I think that's a logical thing to do. Use the funds elsewhere.
That opens the door, though, for an Orioles type situation between 24 and 25. That opens the door for a Blue Jays type situation between 25 and 26, especially if you don't care about Max Scherzer, Chris Bassett. You don't bring those guys back. And then all of a sudden you fill in with some guys from the farm, or sign a mid-range guy like Flaherty did with the Tigers. You sign a mid-range starting pitcher, rely on youngsters coming up, let a couple of veteran guys go that you didn't even put on the postseason roster, and let Bo walk, and then get off to a bad start. What would that do in the clubhouse and with the fan base?
You can't do that. You can't do that. You have to use those funds that might have gone to Bo and not do that exactly what the Orioles did. Premier, you need to go out and get another premier bat. You have to go out and get guys. You can't go mid-range anything other than, you need to fill some spots. But Eric Lauer is going to be in the rotation. I'm sure you're going to figure that out. But you still got to go out and get another stud in that rotation, and another stud, bat somewhere somehow. So you can't fall into that trap, because you're right. That would be disastrous.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way Scherzer would want to come back, and Bassett, I don't think they would want to spend the kind of money that would be required to keep him. But then, you go Eric Lauer, you go Trey Savage, you go Berrios, and we've talked about Berrios and his pending opt-out after next season. There are still a lot of question marks in this offseason for the Blue Jays to consider and to think about, and to not get carried away with their revived farm system and the way that the pitching has operated through this section of the season. They have to be very careful.
Yeah, no question. And like I said, those questions remain, but they'll feel a lot better if you win a World Series. That's for sure. Parades have a good way of making the fan base stay happy.
The remaining opponents, we're recording before the Game 5 of the Mariners and Tigers. Who do you think would match up better against the Blue Jays in terms of them moving on to the World Series? Who would Blue Jays clubhouse rather face if they were ever going to say it, and they're never going to say it? Who do you think matches up better for the Jays, Mariners or Tigers?
Yeah, Tigers. Tigers aren't a great team. They got one stud pitcher, and I think it's a mismatch if the Jays face the Tigers. I think the Mariners are a serious foe. You know what I mean, with that rotation they got and what they can roll out there. I mean, it's a crapshoot now, but I think if you face the Tigers, you've got a much easier path to the World Series. I just don't know how anybody else can see it any other way. The Mariners are just a better team, and they've got pitching that could, cause you some problems. But I don't know. Maybe if you lose 2 to Skubal, that's a different situation. But I think the Tigers are on borrowed time, and they're still borrowing. But I'd like to face the Tigers.
Yeah, in fact, if the Tigers win the Game 5 on Friday, with Skubal pitching, he wouldn't be able to go on normal rest until Wednesday, which is Game 3, which would mean I don't know if he would be on short rest. Game 3 and Game 7, in a 7-game series. So there would be that, but it's still an advantage not facing him in Games 1 and 2 at Rogers Center. So I think the Jays fans should be hoping that the Tigers win, but realizing that the Mariners are a better team, and we'll see how that plays out. But either way, I think the toughest opponent they had was the Yankees. I mean, we talked about when the Yankees were playing the Red Sox, who they should rather face, who they would do better against. And I thought Yankees. And it turns out I was right. But the Red Sox were gone thanks to the Yankees. Now the Yankees are gone. Now they're looking forward, and it's not a clear path, but you can see the light at the end of the World Series tunnel inviting the Jays through against either one of these teams. And the Mariners' rotation has not been as dominating. Maybe it's because it's a 162-game season and they've had some injuries, but it has not been as dominating as it is on paper. So we'll see. And the Jays they put the ball in play, and that's blah blah blah, their reputation. But they have what looks like a pretty good path against either one of those teams.
They do. Yep, they do.
Let's see now. The others, the National League, Dodgers and Phillies are still playing. Cubs and Brewers are still playing. Can you imagine what the networks and Major League Baseball would do if it was the Blue Jays and the Brewers in the World Series? What that would, I mean, I know across Canada they'd be getting 2.5 million viewers. Yeah, right. Which and thankfully for the Blue Jays, in terms of conspiracy theories, the Mariners or the Tigers wouldn't be much better for the network. So there's not going to be a concerted effort to have the umpires screw the Jays because they're the Canadian team.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think they're praying to God the Dodgers roll through there. That's for sure. Dodgers, Phillies. There's no question about that.
Just before we get into NFL, what's your feeling on John Gibbons, the Mets collapse and John Gibbons stepping away from that team? Do you think he's ever going to get back in uniform and do something?
I wonder. I actually do wonder. I think maybe that was the last kick at the can. Obviously, you always question when the Braves job comes open, but I'm not so sure that's really the plan for again.
Yeah,
But,
right.
I'm wondering if maybe that's it for John. He's certainly done well, and I'm sure he's been smart with his dollars. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Gibby's steps away, and who knows, maybe it's permanent. But it's certainly he didn't want to be part of the purge in New York, which was obviously came as well. So good for him. He's done well for himself. Well, you never know. He may pop up again, but I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see him at least for a while.
Maybe the Sirens call of doing podcasts, which he did before he got the Mets gig, it was too strong, and he wants to get back into media and the podcast game. But nah, I don't think.
Another book on his horizon. Yeah,
there you go.
He's gonna write another book.
Here's a trivia fact that we got from our friend Kevin Glue at Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame and Bob Elliott's network. 11 Canadian-born players had base hits in 2025. Vlad was the leader, followed by Josh Naylor, Liam Hicks, and Bo Naylor. I think that's making inroads with Canadian-born players in Major League Baseball, and there's far more on the horizon. And we'll, at some point this winter, talk about Canada's entry in the World Baseball Classic. But it's always been a positive turn in the last 20 years. Maybe Larry Walker was inspired by Terry Poole, and Larry Walker's inspired others, Justin Morneau, guys like that, Joey Votto. But it's a good sign for Canadian baseball. And we've seen it up close firsthand with your Niagara Ironbacks, how much good talent is out there. But what do you think of the trajectory of Canadian baseball moving forward?
Well, I think it's been happening for a long time. Even the last couple of decades, I've seen it start to grow. I've seen it from the grassroots, which, no offense, but that's kind of where my, the brainwave of doing something like I'm doing with the young college players in Canada, just to get more exposure for them, more opportunity. Canadian baseball's on well, and there's been a lot of great work being done in by the CPPL and that league, and you could just see the growth and the talent and how these guys compete with American players. And I expect a further explosion in the next couple of decades, and 11 players will be comical, 20 years from now. I think they're going to be littered all throughout Major League Baseball. Baseball in Canada is a big thing. It's a very, very big thing, and I think it's going to rival what we do for hockey around here at one day. It sounds silly, but kids are playing baseball, and there's opportunity for them. There's a lot of baseball to be played, and Canadians fit in nicely. And I think, the next step is making a statement on the world stage. I'm not saying it's going to happen this year. Could, but I think that's the next step, is to see Canada as a nation make a World Baseball Classic statement. I think that really gets more kids involved. I think that's going to happen. It's the game's growing.
Before we get to NFL again, I just want to give a shout out to our boy Ryan Ficini, who moved from going to college in North Dakota and then played for us this summer and shoved for his 5 or 6 starts that he made, and then went to Brock and just was named Athlete of the Week for his performance in the OUA playoffs. So shout out to Ryan Ficini. All right, NFL. Here we go.
Yes, sir.
Last week, in week 5, Mal was 2-3, Griff was 4-1, total 6-3. 6-4, I guess. No, 6-3 because we both had the same loss. So 6-3 if you went with us. For the season, Mal 10-15, Griff 14-10-1, and the total is a mediocre 23-22-1. Well, what do you think about it? We haven't made anybody any big money, but it's early. So we will now offer
it's early
up our...
and we're treading water. We're not
You're not losing your house. So we got that going for us. You're losing a little vig, that's all. All right, so season or week 6, top 5 picks. Who you got this week? Now we're going with Bet365's Thursday morning lines. What do you got?
I have the first one is the New York Football Jets getting 7 at home versus Denver. Then I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals, who just cacked away a game, and I think they'll rebound on the road against the dominating Colts, also getting 7 points. I'm going to take Dallas on the road at Carolina, giving 3. Since the field goal, I think they'll score a whole lot there. I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints hosting the upstart New England Patriots, getting 3.5 at home. And the last one is the Seattle Seahawks in Jacksonville getting 1. So Jets, Arizona, Dallas, New Orleans, and Seattle are my picks this week.
Interesting. I'm taking the Panthers.
Oh boy.
Getting 3 from the Cowboys, so we're head to head there. No, we're not giving anybody a projected winner because we're against one another. I got the Jaguars giving 1 to the Seahawks, so we're head to head there. I got the Packers giving 14 to the Bengals. I know that's a stretch, but those big spreads always scare you because there's backdoor covers and whatever. But I don't think the Bengals have a backdoor quarterback, so we'll see. I have the Lions getting 2 at the Chiefs. I like that. That'll be a good game to watch. But I got the Lions getting 2. And then I've got my weekly over-under. I've got the Bills and Falcons over 50 points. So there you go. Those are our picks. And there's only 3 that we have different each. So it'll be a quiet week if you're going with Exit Philosophy picks.
Yeah, and we're going head to head. Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, this is setting up. We'll talk about next week. We'll be in the middle of the League Championship Series, and it'll be interesting. We'll set that up, and we'll talk about what's happened, what's going to happen next week when we do Exit Philosophy. But in the meantime, in the words of Vlad Guerrero, duh, Yankees lose. So a lot of people are celebrating that. And we will look forward to next week. And thank everybody for listening, for watching on YouTube, for listening wherever you get your podcasts. And again, don't forget to leave comments, share with your friends, and we will be back at you next week. Thanks, Mal.